again, man, don't focus so much on the idea of just sex robots. What I can't even talk about this as like, what if this is what's next? This is what's next. I mean, this is a very, very real thing that's happening.
Yeah.
So much so that they're
it's
actually
already
talking
happened.
about, right. That they're trying to pass a law that it would, that wouldn't bring it to Houston. And then I don't know, man. I guess more than anything, I just want to kind of to open the dialogue of like, why do we go first with these technological advancements? Why do we first go to that seemingly insatiable need and lust for that indulgence of sex?
Right.
Why does it always go there? And I want to know where people kind of sit with this. Like,
yeah, it's not.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, like, it's not even. It's funny that you mentioned that. Like, where does this sit with people? Because you'd probably ask anybody, and it's just gonna happen, right? It's probably nothing. I mean, it already is happening, like we just said. But most people would probably say, and I'm speculating, that sex robots is just going to be a thing, just like porn is a big thing on the internet. Like, I don't know the percentage, but something crazy, ridiculously high percentage wise of all internet is porn. So it's obviously, if robots happen, sex robots are going to happen. But we're not talking about it, at least in any open form. You know what I mean? So were you asked how are people sitting with this? Since we're not talking about it, it's not in any kind of open critical debate or even open supportive debate. It's just happening, and then you'll see an article about it, but there's no like actual conversation happening around it. Then is that a good thing? A bad thing? Probably not a good thing. But yeah, I think it's gonna have some serious implications on society, which I know you're gonna get into in a little bit. Go ahead.
Right, so societally, that's exactly, you segued brilliantly. What does it look like for a society that, as you've mentioned, there seems to be a prevailing narrative around, if there's a technology or an advancement that happens, we will find some way to put our wieners into it. and I don't know why that happens, but again, so think about this, and this is because I actually watched a couple articles about a guy that's trying to further advance. So where, man, it's just weird to me where they, the way they're able to react in the physicality of the moment, and some of the things, like they're not just lifeless. Like when you think of the term sex robot, it becomes so diluted. It's just like, I can't help but picture like Bender just spread eagle on a mattress. That's very much not what we're talking about here. We're
just
talking
purely
about,
metallic.
right. And just crudely, just opened with a can opener kind of hole. And then you got a guy that's just drunk enough. It's like, yeah, that'll work.
That'll do. Get a couple of metal shavings, but that's live. That's showbiz, baby.
We're talking about anatomically correct. We're talking about
reactive.
To react.
Yeah.
Reactive. Exactly. And that's, so please don't be dismissive, because it's just, I feel like the term sex robot cheapens it. But what does that do? And this is where, so I started against it because, it's just everybody in Texas is like, this is wrong. This isn't how it should be.
Yeah.
But, and when I say for it, please don't think it's like, oh, Derek just wants to have sex with a robot. That's not it. What I couldn't help.
There's one in your closet right now, isn't there?
I'm working on a prototype.
It's mostly mason jars, and
I've been saving mason jars and tuna cans for the last 4 years.
Oh gosh.
Her name is Cinnamon. But listen, anyways. The point is how would be the stigma around fulfilling what's inevitably going to happen? Like you said, technology rises up, we find some way to put our wieners into it. That's like, it's hand in hand. So it's why then would there be such a stigma around this happening with an inanimate object, because
Well, it's a huge topic because think about like, so what makes up a living organism, right? Like if you look at just the bare essential, like what is the definition of life? And usually the life is one that has some kind of processing thoughts, one that consumes or at least consumes and expels energy and all that sort of stuff. But one of the big definitions of life is reproduction. So
right.
we're changing the game on what it means to be alive as on one of the main pillars that defines life. So I see where you're coming from. Like it's like we like to joke and to say, oh yeah, well it's just a sex robot I keep it in my closet, blah blah blah. But as evolution of humanity goes forward, it might make a weird turn for us that we largely didn't expect, or has implications on society as a whole, where we're going to evolve to, that although sounds silly now, but it might actually have a huge effect on us.
Absolutely. And if you think about the negative stigma that surrounds brothels, or majority of, and
right.
When I say sex work, I mean that is explicit and illicit to, not necessarily women who are in porn and things like that, but people who sell their bodies or for sexual gratification of others. Where then? Why would you? Why do you think it would be something negative to plug in an inanimate object, but because the reality is, it's like sex in its most primitive form. Like what are we really after? That moment of gratification. If we have something that can look, feel, and act in a manner that is pleasing or arousing, but you can take away the human element that can oftentimes be degrading or harmful, or if you look at most, I don't know if prostitution is the PC word to use anymore, but
sure,
when you involve the human element, you get human trafficking, you get
right.
murder, you get drug use, you get all of the things that surround that, when we could just take all of the negative away from it, plug in a robot, and take care of it that way. So again, the implications for society are, again, so this is somebody that I don't know that I was so for it before, but it's like, here's where it got weird for me, Rusty, and this is just a weird way of thinking.
Yeah.
If that doll could replace one of my daughters.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying?
Like it would. Yeah, well, and there's two ways to think about that. There's one like, okay, well now we don't have to worry about, people don't have to sell themselves. And that's all fine and good. So in a weird way, does that force would-be prostitutes to get real jobs? Or is it more the perspective of they took our jobs? Like, I don't know. I have no idea what it's like to be a prostitute. Well, I do a little bit because here I am on YouTube. No, but is it going to be taken from the perspective of, okay, great, now what they call the oldest career or oldest job in the history of mankind is now completely taken over, and so these people, it's weird to say it this way, but these people are now out of work, and is that a good thing? Because why were they doing it to begin with? Probably because they didn't have a whole lot of options. Fair. Right? Like, I can't imagine someone going, I could be a doctor, but I don't know. But you're right in the sense of, if that option is no longer available, or available to very few, it's like a hard gig to get into because you're competing against robots that perform exactly the way that the user, the John, now they're going to be called users, wants, then their last-ditch effort at a job is going to be something that's less demeaning. I don't know. Like, how do you... That's something that needs to be played out. Like, you can't even begin to answer that.
Right, and that's, do you what emotions would be evoked from you opening up and there's a headline of a poor prostitute robot bludgeoned in an alley and found in a dumpster?
Right.
But when it's
It would be like, oh, that poor insurance company.
right, but then think about it from and again, I'm using I'm sure, old, not PC language. Think about if you're a pimp.
Yeah.
This is probably gonna sound super degrading, but do you have to have
manager is what they're called, talent manager.
Talent manager? Do you have to have an Asian girl, a white blonde girl, a brunette, or can you just change a wig and you've got whatever you need in one doll?
Right. Yeah, because then like there'll just be like detachable parts in order to meet whatever fetish the person needs.
And then we talked about this on the phone. Does that then lead to the fetishizing of a real woman again? You know,
right.
Is it like,
that's where it gets trippy.
That's weird, right? Where it's like where this becomes so much the norm that it's like, oh man, sex robots are great, but have you been with a real woman?
Right, and then and then you can imagine it starts getting frowned upon, where it's like, okay, imagine every home now. Okay, it's almost like we need to start with the simple fact that humans have desires, sexual desires, right? And of those sexual desires, sometimes there's a bad, I don't know what you call it, reaction, or not reaction, just a bad. Now I'm like completely lost in what I was going to say. But the concept that we can eliminate the bad from our own desires would lead it to make it look even more worse. It's almost like, okay, we eliminated let's say we eliminated the people being poor and starving. Like we completely eliminated that. Now we have someone that's actually poor and starving in this new utopian society. That's going to look so much worse now. So if we have sex robots that essentially take care of prostitution, take care of, so no STDs are no longer a thing, all the bad that comes out of any kind of sexual desire, then we'll kind of lean towards sex robots, like for everything. And so when someone wants to actually have intimacy with a real person, and I'm not talking about tomorrow, this is something that would take years and years to go through, right? But at what point then does the human on human action, which is going to be its own fetish, becomes almost disgusting? I look at it kind of like we kind of see that with pregnancy, and one of the things that my wife was wanting to do is to have a natural birth, and I kept saying, why? Why would you do that? And from her perspective, it's kind of like a badge of honor. But from my perspective, it's like, okay, it sucks that you have to give birth and it's going to be this incredible pain, and we have modern technology to keep that pain at bay, and you could just spurt the little crap out and not have any worries or concerns about dying also. Why sit there and get a midwife and have the baby naturally? And I don't know if that's changing, but it seems like more and more people are doing less than natural births. Is that going to be the same with sex robots, where all of a sudden it's going to be weird or fetishized to have person-on-person action? Is it going to be a weird category on the porn site?